This is the moment a people smuggler discovered the bodies of 39 Vietnamese illegal immigrants in the back of his lorry. The 39 men, women and children had all suffocated on a ferry journey across the North Sea.
There's immigrants in the back, but they're all lying on the ground.
This is serious and organised crime and has resulted in the loss, on this case, of 39 lives.
I can confirm we have officers working around the clock and we have now arrested a fourth person.
They had been locked inside a sealed container with no fresh air for at least 12 hours. Jurors were told of a smuggling network that cashed in on migrants desperate to reach the UK. In fact, we know that two very similar journeys had been completed in the days before. So why did this particular journey end in tragedy for the 39 migrants? And who's to blame for their deaths? It's Tuesday morning on the 22nd of October, just hours before the 39 Vietnamese would start the journey that would lead to their deaths. Some of the victims are in Paris at this point, others in Brussels. Most had travelled separately from Vietnam months earlier, motivated by difficult economic conditions back home. Some borrowed thousands of pounds from their families to get there and told relatives they were taking a VIP trip to England to find work.
That will be the primary goal, to come to the UK, to work hard, to send money home and then return back to Vietnam. It's generally not just an individual decision, it's a decision that will be made in consultation with the entire family. It's a project that takes many months to plan, to organise, securing the funds. Migrants have to be determined to do this.
26-year-old Pham Thay Tar Mi was hoping to reach the UK to work in the beauty industry. She had planned to send money home to her family to pay off their debts and fix up their house. Her parents borrowed money to pay for her trip by mortgaging their land.
Thế nào cả thì cũng cán hắn, cũng nói là con như cũng có tuổi rồi, thì ở nhà mà lấy chồng, chứ đừng có đi là gian khổ, con gái gian khổ vất vả. Nhưng mà hắn ấy nói là giờ con mang đi thì không thể cứu vãn được cái tình thể là như bố mẹ đang nhiều.
Mi left her home province of Ha Tin on the 3rd of October 2019, travelling by bus to Hanoi and then by car to China. From China, Mi then flew to France, where the smugglers had arranged to pick up the migrants. At 9:27 a.m. on the 22nd of October, 3 taxis pulled into the Chemin Nuld Strata in Bienne. Then at 10:19 a.m, Eamon Harrison pulled into the same spot and got out for 9 minutes. This is when the migrants are believed to have climbed into the back of his lorry. Harrison said he'd been told to hide inside his cab with the curtains closed. Police don't know if all the victims were picked up at this point, but at least 4 taxis dropped off some of them. Eamon Harrison was a driver for a haulage company. The company did legitimate work. It collected and delivered food and drink, but at other times it made tens of thousands of pounds by smuggling illegal immigrants into the UK. Haulage boss Ronan Hughes was the ringleader of the smuggling operation, and Harrison had been in contact with him that morning. At 11:30 a.m, Harrison drove his lorry from the French border into Belgium. The temperature in the trailer had now reached 21 degrees centigrade and would continue to rise throughout the journey. We know this because the migrants were inside a refrigerator trailer, which was fitted with a device to record temperatures. But the refrigeration was not on all the time they were on board.
If it's between 10 and 30,000 pounds that people are paying for that journey, that's amassing anywhere between 45 million and 135 million for the criminals. And then there is the additional sums of money that are earned by criminals when the people arrive either in the UK or somewhere else in Europe, when they're in these exploitative situations, whether it's cannabis farms, car washes, nail bars, and of course when they arrive in the UK, there is a backlog of debts and exploitation and a load of people who they've got to, resolve the situations with, whether that's payments or promises or helping out in some other way.
Harrison arrived at Zeebrugge port with the trailer shortly after 1 p.m. But he then turned around and drove south to a petrol station outside the village of Lissawega. Harrison went into a shop and bought a can of drink. The temperature inside the trailer was now 25.2 centigrade. Harrison drove back to Zeebrugge and entered the port just after 1:40 p.m. He reversed the trailer, uncoupled it and drove away. Eamon Harrison's job was done. The team in the UK were waiting for their instructions. The trailer was loaded onto a ship called the Clementine, which set off 36 minutes late. As the ship steamed towards England, the migrants were trapped inside the trailer in total darkness, with no way of opening the doors.
Because there are so many links in that journey, there's so many sort of possibilities for things to go wrong, for exploitation to take place, for abuse to take place, that those journeys can be very, very dangerous and precarious for these migrants.
By 6:25 p.m, the temperature had risen to almost 35 degrees inside, and selfies taken by Femme Tate Army reveal the sweltering conditions the migrants were facing. We can't show these images because they're too distressing. Over the next couple of hours, the migrants tried desperately to phone for help, but there was no signal inside the trailer. One of the victims dialed 113, the number for the emergency services in Vietnam, but the call didn't go through. Femme Tate Army tried to make phone calls at 7:01, 7:02, 7:03 and 7:04 p.m, but none of them was successful. Meanwhile, in Essex, those awaiting the lorry trailer's arrival in England were making their plans. Ronan Hughes had sent Maurice Robinson, the lorry driver on the English side, a message with further details. By picking up the migrants from Purfleet ferry terminal, Robinson was set to make almost £60,000. At 7:37 p.m, the temperature inside the trailer had climbed to 36 degrees centigrade. The migrants began to record messages to their loved ones. "I'm sorry, I can't take care of you. I'm sorry, I cannot breathe," said Nguyen Ta Tong. "I cannot breathe. I'm sorry, I have to go now," said Nguyen Dun Lung. 2 minutes later, the same victim said, "I'm sorry, it's all my fault." The temperature was still rising, and by 9:02 p.m, it had reached 38 degrees centigrade.
Nhắn từng đó thì mẹ tưởng là đi xe hoặc đi tàu đi chật chội khổ thở đi nghẹt đấy. Mẹ mới nói con chịu khổ tí chứ mẹ không biết cái sự việc nó rửa.
Between 10 and 10:30 p.m, the carbon dioxide in the trailer is thought to have reached a toxic threshold. So many migrants could no longer survive in the airtight container. They would have suffocated shortly after. The Clementine arrived at Purfleet just after midnight. Maurice Robinson had already arrived and was waiting to collect the trailer. According to the prosecution, Romanian George Nica was also in the area and ready to carry out his part of the plot. Jurors were told his role was to organise transport for the immigrants once they were unloaded from the lorry. Nica admitted previous people smuggling, but he denied having a role in the deaths of the migrants. As the containers were taken off the ship and moved to shore, a cargo operator said he noticed a decomposing smell coming from the trailer, similar to waste. Maurice Robinson collected the trailer and drove out of the port just after 1 o'clock. His instructions were to drive to the area of Collingwood Farm in Orsett, where, said the prosecutor, George Nica and the other drivers were waiting. Instead, Robinson turned into Eastern Avenue in Thurrock after receiving a new instruction. Give them air quickly, but don't let them out. Ronan Hughes sent Robinson this message on Snapchat. Hughes was right to be concerned, given the number of people they had smuggled in the trailer. But it was too late. Shortly before 1:15 a.m, Robinson opened the rear door of the trailer slightly. He took a step back and stood there for 90 seconds as vapour rose from the lorry. Then he went back to the driver's seat. The first thing Robinson did after he discovered the dead bodies was to call Ronan Hughes. It wasn't until 23 minutes later, after first driving off and then returning to the same spot, that Robinson rang 999.
Hello, caller, is patient breathing?
Hello, no, I'm a lorry driver and I just lifted a trailer from the port.
Okay, is the patient breathing?
No, there's loads of them. There's immigrants in the back, but they're all lying on the ground.
Okay, are they breathing?
I don't think so.
They're not breathing?
Don't think so, no.
Okay, tell me exactly what's happened.
I went and lifted a trailer from Purfleet, the freight terminal.
Yeah.
And I got round to where I was going to park up for the night.
Yeah.
And I heard the noise in the back, and I opened the door, and there's a bunch of them lying.
How many approximately?
The trailer's jammed. I don't know.
Tell me approximately how many patients?
25.
25 patients not breathing.
Yeah.
When police arrived at the scene at 1:50 a.m, one of the trailer doors was open, and officers could see numerous half-naked bodies on the floor. They were motionless, close to one another. Some were frothing at the mouth. There was condensation coming from the back of the lorry and a smell like chemicals. PC Jack Emerson tried to check for signs of life on all the bodies he could reach, but because they were so tightly packed, this was difficult.
And we begin with breaking news. 39 people, including a teenager, have been found dead inside a lorry container at an industrial park in Essex.
All such traders in human beings should be hunted down and brought to justice.
As news of the tragedy broke around the world, Christopher Kennedy, one of the alleged lorry drivers from previous trips, was asked by a friend about the 39 deaths. His alleged reply: must have been too many and ran out of air. Kennedy, who was not there on the night, denied being part of a wider people smuggling plot. The court heard that the week before, his lorry was stopped at Calais by border officials. They found 20 Vietnamese migrants on board and released them. At least 2 of the migrants from that foiled trip died in Harrison's lorry a week later.
At the moment, if you look globally, only one victim in every 2,150 sees their perpetrator convicted. That's shockingly low. 99.98% of the time, I think the figures are that you get away with this. So if you're a criminal committing these crimes, there's nothing stopping you, there's nothing pushing you back, because you're making, globally $150 billion a year is the estimate. A lot of that comes from the UK. Why would you not do this crime?
The prosecution said the smugglers simply doubled up the number of migrants. They got too greedy. That greed cost 39 lives and left the families of those victims in Vietnam devastated. In Vietnam, Hoang Van Tip's parents visited their son's grave and lit incense for him. He was 18 years old. For the Vietnamese, burning incense is a sacred practice. It helps connect the living world with the dead. Nguyen Van Hoong's parents also lit incense for their son. They say they don't want to talk about him anymore. It's too painful.
Nhắc đến cho nó. Đừng có nhắc đến cho nó. Cứ để cho quấy quả. Cứ để cho quấy quả. Đừng có nhắc chỉ đến chuyện lúc là thầy yên đờ. Con này để nhắc đến chuyện lúc là đang càng bạc lên sức lên. anh sực lên.